Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the SaaS Founders Show, where we have fascinating conversations with successful SaaS founders. We just really hear all about the journey along the way, all the things they've experienced and encountered, and learn a lot of great things as we go through these conversations. And so today I'm super excited to have on Lizz Warner. She's the founder and CEO of Gleam, and it's a video-based dating app where you go on a 10-minute video chat before you can text. Super cool concept, so I'm excited to have Lizz on, so let me bring her on the screen. Hey Lizz, welcome.
Hey Tony, thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited that you're here. And I guess to start out, tell us a little bit about Gleam. Love to hear about it. Super cool concept.
Yeah, so it's a pretty straightforward concept. Basically, it's a video-based dating app that's currently live in LA, New York. And the way it works is you set your availability on the app, you swipe to match with people, and then the app sets you up on a timed 10-minute video chat before you can text the other person. And then after you've had the video chat, then you can text them, you can call them back, whatever you want. But the idea is the first interaction is a short 10-minute video date.
Very cool. So really curious, where did the idea come from? Where did that originate? And how did, you turn that idea into a reality?
Yeah, I've had the idea just like about video dating like for as long as I can remember. And then a few years ago, like I worked in video production. So I was always like at the office super late, like barely had any free time. And I found that whenever I would like go on first dates, it usually was like, man, I could have figured out if I vibed with you through like a video chat. And so what I started doing was just video calling my dates that I would meet through other apps. And I found that they loved it too, because they didn't have to leave their couch and no one had to worry about who's going to pay. And you just figured out like right away if you wanted to meet the other person and if it was like worth your time. Because I think that was my biggest thing, is I just like had such little precious free time and I didn't want to spend it on like, a bad first date. So I started doing that. And then I told my girlfriends about it and they were like, oh, that's so smart. Like I'm gonna start doing that too. And I was on a road trip when they said that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just like sick of waiting for this to happen. I'm just gonna start working on it. And so I did.
That's really cool. So you were actually, you kind of had an MVP insofar as you were like kind of what you were doing, right? The video chats to get started. That's really cool. Yeah, just in preparing for this conversation today, I thought about, the whole online dating space is like so crowded. There's, the big players out there. How did you make the decision? So you had this idea, which is super cool. I've never heard of anything like that, like a video conversation to start it off. But when did you, after having done that and finding that was successful, to have those video chats with people to determine if it's worthwhile to discuss talk any further with them or meet up with them? When did you make the decision that this was something that you wanted to turn into a product and a business?
Yeah, I think it was like during that road trip specifically, just because like when I would start talking about it, like everyone's like, oh, I'm going to start doing that. Or like, I would love that. I would love to use that. And then, like you said, I would MVP test it by like video calling just random dates, and they loved it too. So I really never got like, I don't know, a no. And so I think like when I was specifically on that road trip with my girlfriends and they were like, oh yeah, like you should definitely like start working on that. I'm going to start doing that. Like, I think that was the moment where I was like, I'm going to start working on this.
That is cool. So do you have a technical background, or do you have someone who you partner with on that side?
Yeah, so I don't have a technical background, but I have a developer who basically built the app from scratch. So we've been working together for a little while, and yeah, I definitely don't have a technical background.
How has it been being, sometimes we talk to founders and there's either the technical ones or the non-technical, and we've seen a lot of both. And how is it, passing your vision along to someone to explain to them, since they're going to be executing it? What has that been like, and what have you learned along the way?
Yeah, so I had to learn how to use Figma, which is like the software we use to design the screens of the app. And then like yeah, my developer and I would just kind of like talk it through, and then he would go and build it pretty much. I'd say like the hardest thing for me has been not knowing what takes time in terms of building it. Like certain things might take a really long time, other things might not. So, it's just important to schedule like very regular meetings with your developer to figure out like, okay, like what do we need to prioritize this week?
Yeah. So what stage is the product at right now?
So it is out in the App Store. So if you're in LA or New York, you could download it and use it. And then if you're not, you can vote on our website, gleamdating.com. What city we should come to next?
I saw that. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So who's leading right now? Is it Chicago?
Chicago's leading, yes, by like a lot.
That's cool. That's my hometown. So
oh, nice.
I'm biased there. Yeah, that's pretty cool to hear that they're representing.
You're representing.
Yeah. So cool. I'm just curious, seeing that it's out newer. When was the road trip when you made the decision to like, I'm going to dive in and do this? When did that occur?
It was back in 2019. So
okay.
It was like pre-coronavirus.
I was going to ask because I was wondering if it came up before the whole pre-pandemic and everything, only because I'm curious how everything that has transpired since then, how has that changed, altered, shifted, pushed forward what you're doing? Because video communications has become so much more popular through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember learning about like I was like, what was going on with the pandemic, and my thought was just like, oh shit, like everyone else is going to start doing this, But it was actually like a really good thing because people really weren't used to doing video calls so often, and I think if it hadn't been for the coronavirus, like people probably would have felt like way more hesitant to use it. But it kind of made, the behavior of video dating like a much more normalized thing. And, I've been reading all these like studies that say that post-pandemic, the number one behavior that's going to remain in dating is like virtual dating. So I would say it's like ultimately set us up for success.
Yeah, definitely sounds like you're riding positively riding that trend. Super interesting. To that point, I'm sure the normalization and like the critical masses using video conferencing has probably helped having people not as skeptical to try it out or whatnot. So what does the user base look like now, and how are you getting people onto? I guess I'll ask, how did you start getting people initially, kind of your early adopters, kind of beta testers? How did you go about that process to find people to try it out?
Yeah, so what we started doing was setting up like very MVP tests. So I created like a spreadsheet of like, 10 girls, 10 guys, actually it was like 50 girls, 50 guys. And then I'd like match them up, and then we would try basically different ways of setting them up on dates. So like one situation, they set the dates up themselves. Another situation, we picked a time for them. In another situation, we gave them options. And we just found out that like, if they had to do it themselves, it just like didn't work. It just like, it would get lost in translation or be like, oh, actually just kidding, changed my mind. So we found that like just us like picking a time is what worked best. And that's kind of like what led to the development of the app and why it is the way it is today.
Very cool. What are some of the things that, user feedback that you got that helped influence, maybe changed a little bit of a direction or the way a feature worked or something like that? Did you get a lot of input like that? And how also did you prioritize, feedback and ideas for things to do down the road on the roadmap?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy because we get like so many ideas and feedback all the time. So it's hard to figure out like, what do you prioritize? And I'd say like, you have to prioritize the things that will inhibit growth and then like fix those first.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I guess like one of the early pieces of feedback was like, it wasn't even feedback. It was just like, we noticed that people like were not good at like, not as good at scheduling it themselves, or they'd like forget or whatever. So we just knew, okay, we need to build something where like the work is just like done for people, basically. And then that's what, like led to us like having this scheduler feature on the app where you just set your availability. You can change it anytime. And then once you match, the app will automatically schedule you both on a date when there's overlap.
Oh, that's cool. So that's built in now, that kind of based on availability.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's like I use Calendly to schedule
that's
meetings, and it sounds like,
it's kind of like Calendly meets dating a little bit, honestly. It's funny.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, for these type of networks, you have to get to that level of, you got to have enough users in there. So how have you addressed that with you being early on?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, growth has been like growth of an app is something I've never done before. So I'm definitely like learning that as I go. We started, so the first thing we did was we're launching like city by city. So it's really not important to just like open up. It's really important to not just open up like worldwide, because then like people download the app, then no one will be on it, and then they'll just delete it. So we started by launching in Los Angeles first, and then grew by like mostly by like word of mouth. I did some guerrilla marketing. So like I got Gleam hand sanitizer. I was just like more in the middle of the pandemic, and then I just like passed it out
Cool.
on one of the popular hikes. So we also did a partnership with another photography company that like, had wanted to partner with the dating app. And so like, we basically just like set up an event where people could come and get like their profile pictures taken. So little like things like that. And that's just something that, we'll probably be doing like forever. So it's been a really interesting learning experience.
So how are you able, to the point of, there being all these different dating sites, how are you able to articulate, why Gleam and how it's different, and how do you articulate that value to people to get I guess both, both potential users, but then in a bigger sense, I don't know, we could talk in a second about like, if you're looking for funding or if you've bootstrapped, but there's going to be all these people out there that you need as a founder to influence and get them to see your vision. How has that been for you? How have you gone about that?
Yeah, so it's definitely like a very crowded space, but the core difference between ours and like the other major apps is like pretty simple, which is that there's no texting beforehand. And like in every other app, it's like every other app is like a matching app. All the popular ones, it's like just match, and then like nothing happens. So with ours, it's like you actually like go on a date. It's like a dating app. So once you match with someone, it takes you straight to the date. You don't waste time texting. You don't have this like getting caught in this loop of like an endless swipe cycle where you're just constantly like matching with the people and then nothing ever goes anywhere. So that's the core difference between Gleam and most of these other like major apps. And then the other core difference besides the no texting is that it schedules it for you, and there's like alerts and reminders. And no other apps have both of those.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So do you pay close attention to all the different other sites, like features and what is being done, and the rates that the other sites are growing in popularity, all of that?
I definitely do, but I don't spend too much time on it because you just kind of, it's not very helpful to know that. Like, it's better to just like focus on like improving your own product and talking to users as much as possible. And like, there could be another app that does the exact same thing, but if we do it better, then, we'll win.
What is the feedback? What does that feedback collection process look like? How do you learn from users? How do you get feedback from them?
Yeah, so it's a combination of just talking to people and then doing surveys. So like on the app, we have like under the settings tab, like there's like a send user feedback survey that we also have like a rating pop up after the users have gone on like a video date. So then they can give feedback then. And then besides that, it's just like randomly reaching out to people or to users who've like created a profile or been on video dates and just like talking to them and seeing what it's like.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
As far as your background goes, I would love to hear about your experience at BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
And how do you take, those skills that you have and things that, it sounds like you've had a lot of success in your career. How do you take those and parlay those things into, this endeavor?
Yeah, so I come from a video production background at BuzzFeed. So I was like one of the founding video producers there back in like 2014. And then I led the growth of created their travel franchise called Bring Me. And so I don't know if you've seen those like minute-long videos on Facebook that's like, visit this place or like check out this giant donut or whatever. Like those were the videos that my team and I made. So I think like it's definitely parlayed into this experience because like, for example, we've made ads as well. And so, it's definitely been helpful to have like a social media background and, using my experience as a producer to make content for ads for Gleam. And then also, even just for like our social channels to like get a lot of growth as well there.
That's great. I would just love to hear about some of, the people in your network, whether they're mentors or kind of support, people you lean on. What does that look like, as a founder diving in, having a vision, creating something brand new? It's usually, we hear a lot of stories about, the value and the impact of mentors and people that you're able to brainstorm with and ask questions and lean on a bit. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, because of the pandemic and like being able to video chat, it's so much easier to have access to like so many more people. So I've been able to like grow my network in the tech space like pretty wide, which has been like really cool. And something I just totally didn't have at all before. And I think like once you just meet more people and talk to more people, you definitely start to learn who you can ask like certain types of questions to. Like if I have like more business related questions, I go to one person. If I have more technical questions, I go to like another person. And then I also have just like been fortunate to have like a lot of like friends who really just believe in the idea. And so they're always like contributing and like connecting me with people, or we'll do like brainstorms together. And then I have like, people on the team who are working on Gleam part-time. And so I'm always like talking to them about like ideas and things we can do just to improve the app experience.
That's great. What does the team look like?
Yeah. So basically it's like we have, I'd say like 15 people working on it part-time. So I'm full-time, and then obviously my developer. And so once we were beginning like the fundraising stage right now, actually. And so my goal is to fundraise so that we can bring more people on full time.
That's great. So that's something that you're diving into now, is the fundraising aspect?
Yes.
How has that been so far?
I mean, we haven't been open to investment yet. I've definitely been like, in talks with people who are like very interested in investing. And so now that we feel like, okay, we're seeing steady growth and, the app is in a good place, like we are going to open up to fundraising. So I haven't I don't have a ton of experience with it yet because I haven't like actually done it. But, I think it's been helpful to have been like networking for the past year, like very intensely. So I have, people lined up who are interested in investing.
That's great. So have you pitched to investors yet?
Not yet. No.
Yeah. Okay.
It's gonna begin. It's gonna begin.
That's exciting. So how do you feel about that? Are you excited, nervous, a little bit of both?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, everyone says it's like really brutal. So, not excited for that. And my goal is just to be like, okay, I'm not gonna let it like bring me down in any way and just like keep going forward. and just get as much advice as I can from people, basically, and people who've done it before.
I was just going to ask that. So do you have some contacts that you've been able to talk to about kind of what to expect and, share your, what your approach is going to be and get feedback?
Definitely. That's like pretty much going to be my focus now, is just like delving into talking to contacts and like seeing what their experience was like, and, things I should avoid doing or focus on. So that will definitely be what's next.
Yeah. We've heard from a lot of founders just about that experience. And it's just interesting that most founders we've talked to that have raised money, they've said that, really that when you're going into fundraising, man, like that becomes like a full-time gig, just the time that you have to spend there. So is that where you're at right now? Is this starting to take up, a lot of your time? I know you're getting started with the process, but how much of your effort now is being spent on the fundraising side?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting like started into it. So my goal is for it to not become a full-time job, and like to make sure that I'm still like talking to users and focusing on growth, because that's like the most important thing. So I'm just going to have to like, delegate and prioritize my time in terms of like, okay, I don't want this to take over my life. So how do I make it so that I could still manage the other things I need to do, but also squeeze in fundraising?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's exciting. We always, we have plans to bring back some founders who've gone through interesting evolutions in their business. So if and when you get there, we'd love to, hear kind of the.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure I'll have stories.
Very cool. Yeah. Going back to the team a little bit. So you have, quite a few people that are working on it, even if it's part-time. What has, from a culture standpoint, what have you been trying to, like, what type of people are you looking for to work on this product and in your business?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is just like people who are really passionate about the idea and like really want to see a change in the dating space. So that's like the first thing that I look for, because those are the people that are going to, put in the extra effort and like really go above and beyond, and like yeah, people who are passionate about it, I say, is just the most important thing right now. And then I think like as we get funding and can bring people on full time, we'll also be looking a lot more heavily into like, the experience they've had. If they worked on other dating apps before, that will definitely come into play.
What does your planning look like for, as you're going into, working on securing funding? Do you have a plan for, where you'd be putting those dollars in to development, to people, what does that currently look like?
Yeah, definitely. So we're looking to find a product person and a second engineer. So definitely like people is the first hire. And then additionally, we have been talking to some PR firms that we really want to work with, who worked with other like very big dating apps. So the funding will definitely go into there. So I'd say like people and growth right now is just like the two most important things we use the funding for, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's great. What are the biggest, you said, bringing people on, you want people who are passionate about, making change to this, the online dating space.
Mm-hmm.
What are the biggest challenges that you feel that your product addresses? I get the video is what makes it super unique and really cool. But what are the challenges that people typically have with online dating that kind of turn them off to it, or they're not successful, or it's frustrating? What are you helping to solve there?
I could do a whole episode on this.
I'd love to hear it. I'm lucky enough that I never had to do online dating. So I met my wife.
Oh, you're so lucky.
17 years ago or whatever, and I never had to dive into it. So
yeah,
it sounds intimidating to me. So I would love
to. Yeah, I mean, there's just a bajillion things, but I think like one of the biggest things, and I'm like specifically thinking about apps right now, is that, you spend so much time on them, but like less than 1% of your matches you actually like go on a date with. And I mean, I just remember like I would just be like on apps forever, and I'm just like, okay, how much time have I spent on this app versus like how many actual dates I've been on? And then as I've like gotten into the space, it's like you learn that they want to keep you on there as long as possible because that's how they make money. And so they do all these little things that are like kind of evil to basically just like not have you match someone, not have you meet up with someone. So like one example, and apparently this is like kind of common knowledge, but I didn't know it until I got into the space, is that like they'll show you people below your level of attractiveness so that you're just like kind of always swiping. And then every now and then they'll show you someone who's at or above your level of attractiveness. And then when you like them, there's a good chance that they might not even ever see that you liked them. So you're just kind of stuck like constantly swiping and like hoping someone will see you. And if you, I guess it gets better if you like pay money, but even then, like they still do the same thing. So that's one thing. Like another thing is that's just like frustrating is just catfishing. So people who just won't look like their photos at all. You know, a lot of guys say that girls' photos are like very highly edited. And so when you meet the person, like sometimes they just don't look at all like their picture. And so it's another issue. A third issue is like the other apps have now started to implement video calling. But it's like you still text first. You have to like still go through the matching and texting thing. You have to awkwardly initiate a video date. And it's just like not part of the user experience. And then there's no alerts or reminders. So more often than not, someone will miss it. And like, I've definitely been guilty of that because I'm just like, oh, there's nothing that's reminded me I have like a date now. So that's like another issue. And yeah, it's just a very frustrating experience because you just spend so much time and it rarely results in success. So that's what we wanted to solve with Gleam, is just making it more efficient.
Yeah, that's interesting. Reminds me of just, with like social media apps, I think we've become so conditioned to spend a lot of time on apps, and these, the companies that build apps have become really good at understanding human psychology to know what's going to keep us coming back and what's going to keep us, mindlessly scanning and swiping and paying a lot of attention. But to the point, the ultimate outcome of this app is supposed to be going on dates and meeting people. That's a good. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff there. What would you say? Do you see any innovations or other disruptions? I mean, what I think you're doing is pretty fascinating and awesome. But anything else that you see emerging kind of in the dating app space?
Yeah, I mean, I see, and this is like something that's going to be on Gleam as well, is like we're going to have like, questions that we do have questions that like pop up, and we want to do like games down the line. I have seen more and more apps that are like incorporating games, which I think is a really smart idea and makes it just like a little bit less awkward and like you don't know what to talk about kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a trend I've been seeing. There's a lot of very like more and more niche dating apps, like specifically for gamers or specific just for people who love cats or like for farmers. Like it's just like very, very like niche apps, which I think are interesting, but I also think like, I don't know, a lot of times you're attracted to people who are nothing like you at the same time. So I'm curious to see how those will work. But yeah, there's all kinds of things. There's so many random dating apps now. It's like very interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton out there.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear about the gamification. So what are the games and kind of how have you seen that implemented? And just sounds super interesting. We see a lot on the topic of in software in general, gamification, because that again is something along the lines of that human psychology and knowing how to get people engaged and coming back and enjoying the experience. So this is probably a pretty great place to implement something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like Tinder, it was like a game. It's like you swipe, and then it's like ding, you get a match. It's kind of like it basically turned dating into gamified.
Yeah.
Dating. And then the other apps kind of followed suit. So I think the next natural step is just like actually playing games on apps because it just makes it little bit more fun. It's like less stressful. You don't have to like, who's gonna make the first move, like whatever, just like, I don't
Yeah.
know, through darts or something. It makes it easier.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Just to shift gears a little bit, we've made a point to bring on female founders on our show. Someone on our team thought that would be a good idea to highlight and identify. I would love to hear a little bit about, from your perspective, some of the challenges that you might have seen or faced as a female founder.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real challenges will come during fundraising. I mean, I think it's been hard because like it comes with like sometimes with like networking, like there will be people that, I'll talk to who like are like very interesting and have like launched apps before and like very helpful. And then it'll turn sexual, or it'll turn like they'll start hitting on me, and I'm like, no, I like want to talk business right now, like I don't want to go down that route. And it's like awkward to, like, if you turn someone down, then they don't want to talk to you at all. So it's like, how do you kind of like dance that line of just like you have to like kind of like walking a tightrope,
Yeah.
It's like you want to stay friendly and cordial without like shutting the person down. So that is like, I've dealt with that like a little bit, but I have a feeling like I've just heard a lot of stories with fundraising of like, people asking for sexual favors if they're going to give money is like very common. Just like, yeah, I've just heard like some horror stories. I've dealt with people who I thought were going to be my advisors then asking me on a date. And so then I'm like, oh, well, now I can't. Like, now this is weird. Yeah. So definitely have dealt with some of that. But so far it's been like, I've felt empowered because I am the founder and CEO. So I've been able to like carve my own path. And that's like part of why I want to do it this way. I think the bigger challenges for me have been like in an actual workplace as a female. And so, getting to carve my own path this way is what I wanted to do to avoid that.
It's fantastic. So beyond the fundraising efforts, what are the other things that, you're really excited about, let's say in the next 12 months or so for Gleam?
Yeah, I'm just excited. We have all these like features that we want to like roll out and like build. And so, a lot of that will come with like once we get the funding to like actually be able to implement those and like see them come to life. One of the most exciting things is just like having, like, we have Gleam couples now, which has been great. And like one of them is getting like really serious. So that's just like, makes me super happy. So I'm excited to have more people actually like meet. And, the goal is for them to meet and get off the app. And so that's what I want to see more of.
That's cool. Probably a PR opportunity there too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
First Gleam marriage or whatever it is.
I know.
That's pretty cool. Wow.
And another thing too we have is a dating coach feature on the app. I didn't mention that, but that's definitely something else that makes it different from other apps. So like you can purchase a 10-minute session with a dating coach, and they all have their different specialties. And that's proven to be pretty popular so far as well. So I'm excited to kind of like see where that goes.
Very cool. How do you, with all the ideas that you have for the app, the features and everything, how do you create the roadmap? How do you prioritize? What are you looking at to kind of figure that out?
Yeah, it's just a matter of like talking to users, and like when you hear the same thing again and again, then that's like priority. If it just comes from like one person, or like it takes a really long time to build and you're not sure, then those kind of like go later down on the list.
Yeah, that's cool. Very interesting. Yeah. How would you describe how your role has changed from, day to day, from when you first, started, had the idea, the concept, you got together with, your developer and started building this out, to today where you're, now focusing on, raising funds? What does the day to day look like, and how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been it's different every single day. For the first, like when we were working on launching the app, it was like focused on drawing out all the screens, then designing it in Figma, then looking at like the user experience. So that just took like a really long time. So that was like my sole focus. And then launching it, then it's like I had to completely shift gears and be like, okay, now I need to like get the word out about it. Now I need to promote it and like get people to download it. So that's kind of like now where my brain's at. And then my next shift will be like into the fundraising one. So it's a combination of so many things every single day. But, you know, growth is number one, fundraising is number two. So it's just like, yeah, it totally depends on the day.
What are some of the marketing channels and strategies that you've tried and what has worked for you? I know obviously word of mouth is going to be a big one, but anything else that you've done that you want to do more of, or anything that you're looking to try?
Yeah, so we did an event with Forbes that worked really well. So basically, like all of the 30 under 30 listers set their location to a specific place and then swiped on each other. So it was like a Valentine's Day event. And that worked really well. We got a lot of like great organic downloads. So we're trying to figure out like who else we can like partner with, who wants to do some type of like networking, ideally tied into dating, where they can like use Gleam to like meet other people basically. So that's what we're figuring out next.
Oh, that's very cool. So that was done. You partnered with Forbes to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Well, when was that?
That was on Valentine's Day.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
cool.
So that worked really well. That was fun.
That's great. What about, Liz, how do you work-life balance or work-life harmony as a founder? How do you find that? Sometimes we don't use balance because sometimes it's not balanced. As a founder, you're spending so much of your time and effort on the business. How do you manage, and how do you find harmony in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I made the mistake of like not taking any time off the first year. And so I was like, just like working every weekend, every weekday. Like I was just like definitely like draining myself out. And so I kind of realized like, I think like Christmas was the first day I had off. And even then, I think I still did some work. So I was like, okay, I need to chill and like take time off because otherwise I'm just not going to last. And so I started making sure I like took weekends off. I mean, I still don't take the full weekend off, but at least like some of it. I try to have a little bit of time before I go to sleep. Definitely exercise, super important. And then now, that travel restrictions have lifted a little bit, I'm going to be working remotely from just like different cities. And part of it's just to like, get a little change of scenery because I'm always like working from inside my apartment. So I found that it was great for, not only mental health, but just like excitement about the idea and continuing to push forward with it.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most excited about, for what's next for Gleam? Is there something in particular, launching a new city or a feature or something?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing was like literally getting it out in the App Store, which we did this year. And then, launching in LA and New York. I mean, I'd be super excited when down the line we launch in like Europe, or we've gotten a lot of requests from Australia and India, interestingly enough. So, I think that I don't know when that will happen, but I'm definitely excited about that for sure.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the last question here that I have for you, we've been asking all the founders, we'd love to hear, if you had the ability to meet with your past self, right as you had this idea and ready to dive in and, make Gleam a thing, what advice would you give to yourself if you were able to, sit down over a cup of coffee? What advice, based on what you've learned, would you share with yourself?
Man, I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything I would change because all of the mistakes I've made, I've learned so much from. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily anything I would do different. But, I definitely say taking time off is like a huge one that I should have done the first year. I would definitely say like, just like, yeah, talking to as many people about the idea, to as many users as possible is key. And just to also, you know, not only be patient with everything, but be patient with yourself as well. Like things just take time. And so, yeah, it's easy to be like really hard on yourself, but you also have to remember it's a really hard task, you know, to like launch a company and grow an app. So like, you know, showing compassion to all the progress that you've made is very important.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. There's the book, The Four Agreements. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or read it, but it's one of my favorites. And one of the agreements in there is be impeccable with your word. And a lot of that means in how you treat yourself. And I think that's an important one, right? Because there's going to be all the learning lessons that you go through and all the challenges, but ultimately you can grow from those. So yeah, that's
Definitely.
pretty great advice there. Well, I think last thing, Liz, where can people find out more? Where can they get the Gleam app? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can get if you literally type in gleamdating.com, the download link is on there. If they want to learn about more about me, you can DM me on Instagram. That's usually fastest. It's Wanderlizz, WANDERLIZZ, and I will respond. I'd love like any and all thoughts on the app. If people want to try it, like I'd love to know what you guys think. And yeah, I'd just love to talk to people. So hit me up.
That's fantastic, Liz. Well, really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to be on here today. And as I mentioned earlier, we'd love to hear more, maybe have you back again after you do secure some funding and continue to grow. But certainly wish you the best. And to everyone watching, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks a lot, Liz. You take care.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.